Hi guys, I'm Chantal from Growing Up Without Borders. Welcome to our channel. If this is the very first video you are watching, we'd like to welcome you. Make sure you subscribe because in general, we are traveling around the world making cool videos for you and we plan to visit every country in the world. Today we're doing something a little bit different because I had the opportunity and privilege to connect with somebody on board one of the cruises that has been quarantined with the coronavirus. And so this young family, they have 3 children, 1 back at home, 2 that were on the ship with them, went through the whole quarantine process, and their daughter was contacted with the virus. And so here's her story and her interview. If you want to follow them, they go on Instagram under Happy Girls Are the Prettiest. And without further ado, here's an interview live with Aunna. Hi, Aunna.
Hi.
You guys have been through just such a crazy adventure. Started as a dream vacation to, I don't know what you call it right now, but prison or
Oh, it's a very nice prison.
a very nice prison. Okay, well then at least at that, right?
I guess we haven't had too harsh a journey. I like to call it a journey or an adventure. In a sense, it's something extraordinary that we've been through, but haven't been too hard put out by the circumstances. There has definitely been ups and downs and lots of emotions in there, but we've had it so much better than a lot of people did. So
is that how you feel? Yeah, well, that's a good way to look at it. Well, okay, so for our audience, because we're doing this for them to be able to get a little bit of insight as to what you guys went through, and this is just one family out of hundreds of people who have been stranded and held on ships or put in quarantine or everything like that. So if we back it up, when did you first leave on your beautiful vacation trip?
We first started on trip, I think it was January 18th.
January
was the start. So, yes. Our cruise was meant to be for 15 days, and it was sort of a pre-start to the school year holiday.
Sure. And so how many days were you into your cruise when all of a sudden everything kind of all hell broke loose?
To be honest, we were really at the end of the cruise. Yokohama was our last port. So we arrived at Yokohama earlier. We were told that there would be quarantine officers boarding and to just follow the instructions that we were given.
Right.
And then yes, at that point, when we arrived back at Yokohama, we started to hear things about the reason why, and the captain made announcements not shortly after that they had discovered that a man had been tested positive and was on our ship at some point early days.
Right. And then came the announcement of you guys are going to be quarantined, and in your case, you were in a small room with the bunk beds with your 2 children. So there's effectively 4 of you in the room, and you get the announcement, okay, you're going to go into quarantine. How was the reaction of everyone? Were you in shock or?
Well, I was pretty stunned and shocked at that point. I did not know how to react. We were told to wait in our rooms from, I think it was Tuesday night, and on Wednesday morning we're then told that unfortunately the decision was made to keep everyone in their rooms under quarantine for 14 days. And I was in disbelief. I didn't expect anything of that sort to happen. Obviously, that we never even imagined that would occur.
Sure.
And well, I was obviously scared and unsure of what was going to happen. But looking over at my kids and seeing them look scared and mirroring that look, I thought, no, we have to, calm down and look. Okay, this is an adventure, a journey. And we discussed it and talked it over. I guess just for the sake of the kids, we really knew we had to make this as painless as possible for them, and
Yeah.
showing fear and and worry over a situation out of our hands and control was something that we didn't want to do. So we we, we said we were together. We was young and healthy.
Mhm.
We just had to, I thought, I guess, pass the time and make sure that we remained calm.
Yes, so there comes some of the questions that we had for you guys because, I mean, we're a family of five and we're together 24/7 pretty much. And
Yes.
sometimes when you're in close, a room all together like that, I mean, I can't even imagine feeling the confinement or the imprisonment feeling that you must have felt,
Oh.
right? How was that?
Um, we didn't actually. We're quite a very close family, so and we're quite often in each other's space, so that was fine. And I enjoy the kids' company as much as I think much more than most parents might find, and I'm quite happy to have them around all the time, constantly. It did it fell into sort of a routine quite quickly. I mean,
Oh,
the
really?
kids, yeah, the kids, if they wanted some time away from their annoying parents, they would put their headphones on, head back up their bunk beds, and that's it. Sort of push the world out of their head. But for us, we were quite happy to be there constantly. And my husband was distracted with work, so he was busy with his laptop. I was constantly talking with people, and that helped a lot. A lot of people reaching out and
Yeah.
answering the same questions and reassuring them helped reassure myself as well. So
Yes.
that sort of gave me a sense of comfort there. And with the kids, they had friends that they reached out to. The teachers were awesome. They were talking to the close people that they interact with. It felt like a normal Friday Saturday night for us, where we would usually hang around and watch movies together
So it's like a perpetual Friday, Saturday night forced
yes.
confinement.
And yeah, we started to have the routines only because we'd have the general announcements that we would look forward to from the captain, and then we knew the sort of timing that our food would come. It started to get into sort of a timetable kind of thing,
Sure.
and that made the days go past relatively
Yeah.
quickly.
And how about, like, were you allowed to go out and walk around and move around? I mean, I saw some of your pictures where you're working out or your daughter's working
Yes.
out on the floor and such. So how was that part of it?
Um, my husband obviously insisted that we keep up with, a little bit of exercise to make sure we're not just a sloth on the bed and to make sure that we kept our immune system up. So he would constantly remind us to drink water. We made sure that we went to bed at a relatively, suitable time and had enough sleep. The cruise gave us lots of fruits and fruit juice and just maintaining our health. We normally take vitamins and stuff when we're on holidays. We don't want to get sick, so we make sure our immunes were really up to standard. And so we had vitamins with us, but we were running out because we didn't expect that extra time.
Sure.
um, we managed to request for some. My brother also sent managed to get Amazon Japan to send us some as
You're
well.
kidding. Oh.
Um,
So I guess that made it very doable. The fact that you had internet, the fact that you had communication, and gosh, you
yes.
had Amazon. I mean, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
the captain negotiated deliveries for us. I think it was like day 4, and with Amazon Japan or Japan deliveries, they were just overnight. So we got things quite quickly, and my brother
Wow.
sent a stash of chocolate and desserts and snacks
Wow.
to us. So it was really awesome. But we had so much food from the ship as well that they were constantly just giving us stuff that we had to get 2 extra bags to leave.
Wow, that's
Um,
crazy. So
but
tell me too, were you allowed to go outside?
yes,
Yes.
we were allowed to go outside. Captain negotiated for us to have options to sort of schedule time on the deck, and it was a specific area that we could just walk up and down, have a bit of fresh air and sunshine, especially for those in the cabins like ourselves. We didn't have access to a window or
Sure.
I guess, a balcony. So we had that option given to us. I think it was like the third or fourth day, and we would take turns to go out for an hour at a time.
That's
Um,
nice.
it
And
was nice at first.
did you
We
feel like confined in that small room?
I didn't really feel the confinement, and the kids said they were fine with it as well.
Wow.
We generally like to even at home converge in just my bedroom a lot, so it felt like we were just at home. We were used to sort of that sort of cozy feeling.
Feel.
We actually didn't end up going out on the deck much after the first two times. It felt like a chore to be out there. It was hard to make sure that we navigated, 2 meters apart from each other. We had to make sure that when we were going out to follow all these instructions, put on the mask, go through several stations and make sure that we use the sanitizers, get out there. And by the time we're out there, there's half an hour left to sort of meander around and then come back and go through the whole process to sort of decontaminate ourselves, which we were
Wow.
quite vigilant with, and wash ourselves and take a bath and stuff like that. That we felt in the end that we didn't really need to go out, and the kids weren't too keen on heading out after the first couple of times we went out. So we spent the last week just in the room and
Wow.
just forsaking our timetable time to go out.
Crazy.
Yes.
So and then at what point was your daughter diagnosed
Um,
of having the
we
virus?
Yeah, shortly after the Americans left for were repatriated or evacuated out to US, the Australian government announced that they were evacuating the Australians as well.
Mm-hmm.
By the time the announcements came, we had just had our samples taken, and we
Mm-hmm.
questioned that, why we couldn't wait for that test result to come back. But we were told it was a matter of urgency to get us off the ship, and we were actually meant to be evacuated on the 19th, which was the last day of our quarantine.
Oh wow.
We were told that we would be evacuated back to Australia, where we would start a 14-day quarantine, only because a lot of the evacuees could not have had their samples or results back yet. And
Yeah.
by not having that result back, we could possibly come in contact with someone else on the plane or during transit to the quarantine site in Australia. We weren't keen about that, but after reviewing everything that was given to us, we thought we'll evacuate to Australia because this was the most straightforward way to getting home, and another 14 days, and then we're scot free and back home.
Good to go.
Um,
Right. And life goes on.
yes. Unfortunately, as we were pushing our luggage out to be picked up, and then following that to be evacuated, we got the call that my daughter had tested positive from the samples
Like
that
you
we've
were like
taken.
this close.
Yes, we were that close, and we were notified just before we were meant to get on the plane, and it was a bigger shock than when the quarantine was announced. Obviously, I couldn't respond to it. I just shut down for a little bit, and then my daughter obviously was really frightened at that
Yeah.
point. And my husband just kept repeating that she's young, she's healthy. We hadn't shown any symptoms at all at at any point actually during this whole thing. We hadn't shown any symptoms. We were given the choice to separate, and initially they said only Caitlin, my daughter, had to stay and head to the hospital and could not board the plane. The other three could go. We tested negative.
Mm-hmm. Now, how
Um,
old is she?
she's 16, and I reminded them that she was a minor, and they said, well, perhaps one parent could stay and the other could go home with, go back to Australia to quarantine with my son. And immediately my husband said, no, we're not heading back separately, and my son refused to flat out leave his sister behind. So we sort of gathered ourselves, and the boys were pretty calm, but us girls were a bit more, I guess, emotional about it.
Sure.
And my daughter had a really good cry, and she then got over it, as she puts it. She said, "I had a cry, and I got over it." But we started contacting our family members, and obviously there was a bit of panic there. We had to reassure a lot of them that it was going to be all right. And as my daughter heard me say and reassure all of them over and over again, she started to calm down, and we started to then calm down, and thought, look, we've heard that it affects people who are much older and are immune compromised, and we are young and healthy. So we kept repeating that to ourselves, and
Hmm.
and I kept trying to reassure her that we're going to be together, and everything's going to work out.
And
So
did she have periods where she felt quite sick or not really? No.
no, she was fine the whole way through. I guess at the start when we were first confined, she had a bit of headaches, but we thought that was because she might not have been drinking enough water at the time and were just a bit dehydrated.
Hmm.
And that went away. It was just the one day.
Hmm.
The only thing that was keeping us back was that positive result.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did they do the testing a few times and over just to see at what point was
Yes.
she clear, right? And so how many
So
days was that?
it took them about 48 hours to find us a hospital, and which time our quarantine clock for the three of us was still not reset, because it resets from the time we were sort of taken away from her. When we got to the hospital on Friday, 2 days later, we realized there was no internet access there, and we had no way to contact Caitlin once she was taken away. We were just a floor apart, but she was obviously frightened not
Sure.
having any contact with us. I had a roaming card at that point, just in case of anything. We contacted my brother. He managed to send some SIM cards out, but that took 24 hours before we actually got in contact with Caitlin.
Wow.
It
And what about the
was
language barrier?
Yes, and they spoke more English than we spoke Japanese, so
Wow.
that was a good effort on their part. They had little pocket translators, but that
Okay.
was not always correct, and
Right.
change the context of what they were trying to explain. But
Sure.
doctor spoke a lot more English than obviously the nurses, and he could communicate a little bit more to us and Caitlin, and but we hadn't had sort of a proper explanation of anything that was going on. They just said, "Oh, we're taking you to your ward now." I managed to say goodbye to her and say, "Don't worry, we'll speak later." And then we realized there was no internet, and
Oh my
um,
gosh. I can't
yeah,
imagine at that point you would have gone through another low and another
um,
kind of episode of,
it,
all the thoughts and feelings that would go around through your head.
it was a little bit emotional for us.
Can't
Caitlin
imagine.
later, when we got in contact, said she it affected her a lot more than she expected it to, and she was a little bit more frightened. So she said she couldn't believe she'd spent the night crying, and just
Wow.
getting used to being alone. And
Yeah. And especially after all that time together, and then all of a sudden now you get isolated and you have no internet and no communication. I mean, you would feel
yes,
completely isolated and
yeah.
detached.
Well,
Yeah.
we a couple of hours later we managed to send a note through to her from the nurse. The nurses were very polite, and they tried to be helpful, but with that language barrier they didn't always understand what we were trying to say. We sent a note to her saying, "Don't worry, we're getting a SIM card, it's coming tomorrow."
Okay.
And she, because we could send stuff up to her but she couldn't send
Send
items back.
back. Right.
um,
So you didn't know
she
if she was
we
getting
didn't
them.
know what was going on at first, and the next day we managed to get a note from her, which they photocopied, because they wouldn't pass us the note. They actually photocopied the note for us, and it just said that she was fine, and she was would send some fruit up, and she said she was going to eat her apple, and she's fine, and she'll just wait till we get in contact.
Yeah.
So that was a bit terrifying for her, and
And for you, probably as a mom, I can just imagine if that happened to our daughter. I mean,
my heart would have just been pulled out of me, right? Like the
it
feeling of that would have
it
been so
was
hard.
very, yes, and I'm glad I had my husband and son with me, so they sort of, calmed me down a little bit.
Ugh.
But for her, she said that she has three soft dolls with her, and she renamed them as us, so she could
Aw.
feel like we were there with her. And that broke my heart when I heard that was just,
Aw.
yes.
That's so
So
sad.
but
Wow.
we made it through, and once we got, connection through SIM cards and through our phones, that made it a lot easier. We could then sort of talk anytime we needed to.
Yeah.
Now, we came in on the Friday night, but because the labs were closed over the weekends and Monday was a public holiday in Japan, she actually didn't get another test done until Tuesday. So that
Mm-hmm.
was quite a few days after. In fact, it was, I think, more than a week after her first sample, which came up positive.
Mm-hmm.
We had to wait till the next morning to get her results back, and unfortunately, that was positive again. So, um,
So how many days was it from when she went into hospital to being cleared out as clear?
we went in on a Friday, and by the next Friday, she'd been cleared. So,
So 1 week
um,
later. Mm-hmm.
yes, Tuesday sample turned out positive. They waited 24 or 48 hours to do the next sampling, and Thursday she was sampled again, and by Thursday night we were told that was negative, which was good. Um,
Yes.
the consulate, well, the Australian government needed her to have two negatives within 24 hours, so they did another sample on Friday, and by
Okay.
Friday night we were told she was negative again. So
Yeah.
two negatives cleared her, and she was ready to be discharged on Saturday morning. So
Fantastic. That was your like hallelujah moment, I'm
yes,
sure.
we were
Sheesh.
we were so excited, and the doctor
Mhm.
came to tell us that before he actually went to speak to her, and so we were, so excited about that.
I can imagine. Yeah. And
And
then after that, then you had to do another,
um,
essentially, how many days?
um, we had to finish the rest of our 14 days from the time we left her on Friday night. So
Mm-hmm.
from that point, well, we've been told that we will be cleared on the 7th of March, which is Saturday.
Yeah.
We've actually sought a confirmation from the consulate to see when we can actually, come out from quarantine and when we can actually go back to Australia. We haven't got that specific dates yet, but we're hoping it's this weekend. So it's just another 6 days or so left. Thankfully, before we left the hospital, they actually had to sample us, all three of us, and we have turned up negative. We got our results back and we were all negative.
That's great.
So hopefully, at the end of this, we would come out with a negative still, because we're still
Mm-hmm.
in the incubation period. But being in that close contact, I guess being quarantined, if we had been back home or anything like that, know that we have come in contact with someone, we would really ideally want to self isolate ourselves from the community and make sure that we don't pass that on. Um,
Which
when we
is
go, yeah,
so hard. I mean, that's why it's
yes,
spreading so fast. Even if people self quarantine themselves, there's
yeah,
still people live in families, people live in
yeah.
communities. I mean, it's next to impossible. So I don't know what is going to happen now with the whole world getting it. How are they going to manage to quarantine everybody and for everyone just to stay indoors? I mean, that's why in certain countries you see like there's no toilet paper on the shelves and there's no noodles and like people are stocking up and just already
Yeah,
starting to be proactive and staying
yes.
home to
Look,
avoid, you know?
and a lot of people are not showing any symptoms. We've never shown any symptoms. My daughter's never shown any symptoms. We would never have expected her to be positive, except for that whole you needed to be tested before you get off the ship. You know, any other, circumstance, she could have been positive and walking around after a holiday and not know that
And
she
not know.
was.
And that's what's happening, I guess, right now, right? So
But then again, they said anyone with no symptoms have less chance of passing that on, because the way you pass it on is if you cough and sneeze, and with no symptoms, you're not coughing, you're not sneezing, you're not being, dribbling nose or anything like that. Um, we've been ultra conscious about the way we are washing our tummy and trying
Yeah.
not to touch our face, and anytime we've gone and received things from outside, even on the ship and everything, we disinfect everything that's come in contact with someone else before we would try and touch stuff. So we've
Mhm.
been more health conscious.
Are you using alcohol sprays, or what are you using?
We were on the ship given a lot of the antibacterial wipes,
Yeah.
which we've sort of kept along our journey.
I
And
was going to say, like, that's what I have in my pocket.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
doing constantly our phones, and the same thing.
yes,
We're in Asia right now, so doing this is very acceptable. Trying not to come in
yes,
close contact and washing our hands properly, and but still,
yes.
sheesh.
And we've seen a lot of, even in that the little bit of time that we've been outside of the ship and the hospital in our transit to where we are right now, where we are in self isolation. I haven't left my room since we got here, but we still managed to see a small percentage of people doing things that are not sort of like health etiquette wise, sneezing without covering their mouth and things like that. And we worry about that. But we can only control our actions and not others. And we try to make sure that we're as clean as possible. And
Yes.
they're saying you don't need to wear a mask unless you're sick. But if the sick won't wear the mask, unfortunately, it's up to us to do that. So that's
Right.
why a lot of people are still masked and walking around.
So has this brought you guys to let's say, I don't want to use the word trauma, but will you like pick up and book another cruise in the near future, or has this shut you off from the whole cruising industry? Like,
It's not going to stop us from cruising. We love
ah,
cruising. It wasn't our first cruise. This was our fourth one. And
okay,
look, we're still we were impressed with the way Princess sort of kept us in the loop and tried to make it as painless as possible. It was not, it was out of their control. And to
right.
start off with,
Well,
it wasn't
Princess
something.
Cruises is a phenomenal. Which ship are you guys on again, or were you on?
We were on Diamond Princess.
Diamond Princess. Yeah, yeah,
Yes. So
beautiful. Yeah.
it's the, we haven't been put off from traveling. We haven't been put off from cruising. We haven't been put off from Japan. A lot of people said, are you sick of Japan now? And no, we love the country. We love traveling. We love
Yeah.
cruising. It was unfortunate, and I think that it was just the time that we were in, the timing of things, and this pandemic health scare that everyone's got currently. We can be sensible about the way we, comport ourselves and
Yeah. I mean, if you see what's happening now with around the world, people protesting or upset with some of the ships that are, out there,
yes,
like the one that couldn't dock now in the Caribbean had to come back. And we're seeing
yes,
all these crazy, stories, and the world is like panicking, right?
mm-hmm.
But I think, like you said, you just have to keep calm and keep reassuring yourself. Although there's a lot of people out there that have parents and grandparents or even loved ones who have weakened immune systems. So in their right mind, it is a
Yes,
scary situation for
yes,
many, right?
and yes, definitely. And reading of the deaths that have come out, and obviously the people, we've known a few people who are still in hospital after 3 weeks and still
Wow.
testing positive even though they have no
Wow.
symptoms.
After 3 weeks.
Yes, yes,
So this is still something that is still unknown, this whole how long and the
yes,
incubation period. It's still really questionable, right?
yes.
Yeah.
I'm in contact with another Australian, and sadly, she's still testing positive, and it's approaching her fourth week now. And
4th week.
yes, she's
Right.
almost to her fourth week. She's about 3.5 now. I think she'll be fourth week on Friday, and she still tested positive today. And she hasn't had symptoms in like the last 3 weeks. She had initially symptoms, but she's just at her wit's end because
I can
she feels
imagine.
fine, but just that last sample that needs to be negative twice, she just can't get it because it's just still in her body. But
Yeah.
she's all fine. She's back to normal health. And so there are people who's had it sort of worse circumstances than we have. We just we've actually been pretty lucky, I would say. Every time
Yes.
something's happened, I would, remind myself that we are lucky here the most.
Yeah. Was
And
there a lot of support around that? Like, did you guys have Facebook groups and such that you guys all communicated?
no, I didn't actually join any of the groups that came up. We had people reach out to us that were individual passengers who either saw an article and we communicated via social media or email. So there were a few that I was private messaging that we sort of knew each other, had seen each other on board, and then we sort of found each other online and went, hey, remember we saw each other at this point or something like that. And we sat on the next table at people who were, sort of nearest in cabin wise and we'd seen each other. So I had people reaching out saying, hey, my parents are also on the ship. And then we'd chat and sort of kept in touch and made sure each other were fine or otherwise sort of be a communication point. So sort of to keep each other going.
It's nice, yeah, to have somewhat of a community around it or support.
Yes, a support.
And
yes.
My girls were asking about school, which is funny because I was like, you guys are concerned about school, but my girls are actually a little bit behind right now on their schooling anyway. And I was like, it's just like you guys,
Yeah, no, Caitlin's, when she's had internet on board the ship, her teachers had sent work across and pages of textbook for her to review, which was fun.
Yes. I think in our case of our family, we are so go all the time. We never sit still. That sometimes it would be good in a sense just to be put. I mean, we would just get so much done.
Yes.
In one sense. And you caught up on Netflix too, right? I remember the one time I was speaking with you on Instagram.
We haven't actually. We've watched the movies on board the ship, so we caught up on a lot of new movies or some of the older ones we missed that came out because we were always so busy in our normal day life. It was really good to catch up on that.
Are you super excited to just get back to your normal life? How's that going to feel for you? Yeah.
I can't wait to get home. I guess see my eldest son didn't come with us, so he's home.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So how many days in total? You said it was February 18th?
January 17th we left home.
You left home January 17th and it is now March the 3rd.
So, wow, what a crazy time this family has been through, being in quarantine in close quarters like that for 14 days aboard the ship, to finding out their daughter had the virus and going to the hospital. And to top it all off, now they are back home in Australia. They've made it back home, and Aunna has decided with her son to shave their head. And here is why.
It's a fundraiser for Leukemia Foundation in Australia, and the funds go to helping families who needed to relocate or, obviously a family member who has got leukemia and needed treatment. It's also going towards research for leukemia. So there's wonderful things that the foundation's doing, and so 9 days till I shave my head.
Wow. So you're going to come out of quarantine and you're going to be a whole new woman and everything. Wow.
Yes.
That's
so
amazing.
My son and I will be doing that. Yes.
So, I'm going to put the link below in the description.
Thank
so if
you
anyone
so
wants
much.
to help out or participate, then they can do so by clicking there. So
yes.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Well, I have to say, when we first had all that, the quarantine come out, you were one of those who reached out, and it was one of many voices who kept us going. It was nice and heartwarming to have people reassure us and check up on us.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of people who would send us messages, and that really helped a lot to fill up that positivity cup.
Yeah. Well, imagine going through something like this with no internet. How disconnected it would have been,
Yes, that internet definitely helped keep us in touch with people.
Absolutely. Amazing. Okay, well, Aunna, thank you so much again. And we will be in touch.
You're welcome.
Okay,
yes.
Have a super time over there. And all the best to you and your family.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.